At a family party, my sister mocked me. "You'll never be rich like me." Everyone laughed. I smirked and said, "You might want to check your bank account." And that night, I barely reacted when Melanie threw her latest insult across the dinner table. She had perfected the art of the condescending smirk, the way she leaned back in her chair as if she was sitting on a throne rather than at our parents' annual family party. "Face it," she said, swirling the wine in her glass like some villain in a movie. "You'll never be rich like me." A few of our cousins chuckled. Even my parents, though they didn't outright laugh, didn't exactly rush to shut her down. That was the way things had always been, Melanie, the golden child, and me, the one who never quite measured up. I didn't flinch. Instead, I set my fork down, locked eyes with her, and smiled. "You might want to check your bank account." Her smirk wavered for half a second before returning full force. "Please," she scoffed. "As if I'd waste my time on that right now." I just shrugged and returned to my meal, while the rest of the table, sensing that my lack of reaction meant no fun, moved on to other topics. But later that night, when Melanie finally did check her banking app, everything changed. Melanie lounged in the grand bedroom of her downtown penthouse, the glow of the city skyline reflecting off the floor-to-ceiling windows. She had just finished another glass of her overpriced wine, still savoring the smug satisfaction of putting me in my place at dinner. I could already picture her routine, removing her diamond earrings, stretching dramatically, and then, out of pure habit, opening her banking app for a quick glance at her ever-growing fortune. It was something she did regularly, a little ritual to reassure herself of her status. But this time, something was different. She blinked, then frowned, then sat up straighter, pulling the phone closer to her face. Her account balance was wrong. Not slightly wrong. Not a missing transaction or a pending charge. It was gone. The numbers had plummeted. Her once massive checking account was nearly empty. The investment portfolio she always bragged about. It had tanked. And her credit cards? Maxed out. Melanie's breath came faster. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled through her transactions, looking for some kind of mistake. Fraud. A bank error. Anything. But there was no fraud alert. No unauthorized access. No suspicious overseas charges. This wasn't theft. This was her own doing. And that was when the panic truly set in. Melanie's heart pounded as she frantically tapped through her accounts, scrolling faster and faster, as if the numbers would somehow correct themselves if she just looked hard enough. But the truth was staring her in the face, cold and undeniable. The money was gone. Her checking account, once comfortably stacked, had been drained by auto payments she had set up without thinking, her mortgage, her luxury car lease, her endless subscriptions to exclusive clubs and designer boutiques. Her investments, which she had always claimed were foolproof, had nosedived. One bad decision after another, risky ventures she had blindly followed because some financial guru on social media said it was the next big thing. And her credit cards? Oh, those were the worst part. Maxed out. Not just one. All of them. She scrambled for explanations. Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe the bank had made a mistake. But deep down, she knew the truth. She had ignored the warnings, brushed off financial advice, convinced that she was untouchable. And now? Now the foundation of her perfect life was crumbling beneath her. Her breathing grew erratic as she called the bank, pressing the phone to her ear, her perfectly manicured fingers trembling. The automated voice guided her through the balance check. The numbers were the same. Nothing had changed. A wave of nausea rolled through her stomach. She needed to fix this. She called her financial advisor next, the one who had practically begged her not to make those last few reckless investments. When he picked up, his voice was groggy. She had forgotten it was late. "Melanie?" he mumbled. "What's going on?" "My accounts," she gasped, pacing her room. There's something wrong." I lost." She stopped short. Saying it out loud made it real. There was a pause. Then a sigh. "I told you this would happen," he said flatly. Melanie clenched her jaw. "No, you don't understand. I don't lose money. I make money. You need to fix this. I can't fix it, he replied, his voice sharp now. I warned you about the real estate investments. I begged you not to throw money into crypto scams. You ignored every single piece of advice because you thought you knew better. And now you're paying the price. Her throat tightened. So that's it, she snapped. You're just going to lecture me instead of helping? There's nothing to help with. This isn't fraud. It's consequences. The words hit like a slap. Melanie swallowed hard, her gaze darting around the room. It still looked the same: expensive furniture, luxury handbags displayed like trophies, the massive mirror where she had taken 100 selfies showcasing her wealth. But suddenly, none of it felt secure. I need time, she muttered, mostly to herself. I just need time to move things around. Her advisor sighed again. You don't have time, Melanie. You're broke. She hung up without another word. Broke. The word echoed in her mind, foreign and impossible. No, this was just a setback. A bump in the road. She wasn't broke. She could fix this. She could turn this around. And then, as if the thought had just struck her, she knew exactly who to call next. Her brother. Me. Melanie hesitated for a second before dialing. It burned, oh, it burned, to be calling me of all people. Just a few hours ago, she had been reveling in her superiority, making sure everyone at dinner knew how much better off she was. And now, here she was, hands shaking, calling the same brother she had spent years belittling. I was sitting on my couch, enjoying the quiet, when my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. Melanie. I smiled. Right on schedule. I let it ring a few times before answering, making sure she'd stew in her own panic. Finally, I picked up. Hey sis, I said casually. Didn't expect to hear from you so soon. Something wrong? There was silence on the other end. I could hear her breathing, the slight hitch in it. She was furious that she had to make this call. But desperation was louder than pride. I need to talk to you, she finally said, her voice strained. It's important. I stretched my legs out, leaning back. Huh. Important, you say? That's funny, because just a few hours ago, you seemed pretty certain that I was irrelevant. A sharp inhale. Look, I don't have time for this. She stopped herself, probably realizing that demanding help wasn't going to work this time. I just need some advice. I almost laughed out loud. Advice? Melanie had never once asked me for advice. She'd always been the one doling out unsolicited lectures, treating me like a clueless idiot who'd never understand how the real world worked. And now, she wanted my help. This was better than I could have hoped for. I played dumb. Advice? On what? A long pause. Then, barely above a whisper. I lost a lot of money. There it was. I let the silence stretch. Let her sit in the weight of her own words. Finally, I let out a low hum. Huh. That does sound like a problem. But you said something at dinner that's been rattling around in my head. Melanie stiffened. What? I smirked, knowing she couldn't see it. Oh, just that part where you said I'd never be rich like you. More silence. Then, her voice tight. Are you going to help me or not? I tilted my head, pretending to consider it. Help you? I echoed. That's a pretty big request, considering you've spent years reminding me how beneath you I am. Please, she hissed, and I could hear how much it physically hurt her to say it. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. I sighed dramatically. I don't know, Mel. It kinda sounds like consequences. She sucked in a breath. You knew, she accused. That's why you said what you did at dinner. You knew something was going to happen. I didn't deny it. The truth was I had known. Not because I did anything, not because I sabotaged her finances, but because I had been watching from a distance for years. Melanie had always thought she was invincible, but I had seen the cracks forming. The reckless spending. The risky investments. The complete and utter confidence that nothing could touch her. She thought she was smarter than everyone. thought she could buy her way out of any bad decision. Until she couldn't. "Here's the thing, Melanie," I said, keeping my voice light. "You always looked down on me because I never chased status like you did. You thought money made you untouchable. But money only protects you when you know how to keep it." She was breathing harder now. "I don't need a lecture." "No, you need help," I corrected. "And that's the funny thing, because you always made it very clear that I wasn't worth your time." I could feel her frustration through the phone. She wasn't used to being powerless. She wasn't used to asking for anything. She demanded things, expected them. But now she was drowning. And I wasn't about to throw her a life raft. I stood up, stretching lazily. "You know, Melanie, I think it's time you learned what it feels like to be on the other side of things." Her breath hitched. "Wait. Good luck," I said cheerfully. "I hear financial ruin builds character." Then I hung up. And it felt amazing. I set my phone down and exhaled, feeling a sense of satisfaction I hadn't known I needed. For years, Melanie had lorded her wealth over me, using every opportunity to remind me of what she had and what I didn't. And now, for the first time, the roles had shifted. I expected her to call back immediately, maybe send a string of furious texts demanding that I help her, but nothing came. Just silence. Interesting. Melanie wasn't the type to give up easily. If she wasn't calling me, that meant she was scrambling for another way out. I could picture it perfectly, her sitting in her overpriced penthouse, pacing, calling every financial contact she had. Maybe even our parents, though they wouldn't be much help. They'd always worshipped Melanie, but they didn't have the kind of money she needed. No, she was out of options. And that meant she'd be back. Sure enough, the next morning, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a call. It was a text. "Melanie, I know things have been bad between us, but I really need to talk. Please." I almost laughed. Please? That was a word she had never used with me before. I let the message sit for a while. I wanted her to sweat. An hour passed. Then another. Finally I replied. "Me, talk about what?" The response came immediately. "Melanie, can we meet? In person?" Now that was unexpected. For her to actually want to meet meant she was past the point of pride. Whatever had happened last night had shaken her badly. I thought about it for a moment. Seeing her in person, watching her struggle to keep her composure as she asked for my help. Yeah. That was something I had to see. "Me fine. Coffee shop on 5th. 1 hour." She replied instantly. "Melanie, okay." I smirked. Time to see how the mighty had fallen. When I arrived at the coffee shop, Melanie was already there, sitting by the window. She looked different. The usual confidence, the air of superiority she always carried, was missing. Instead, she was fidgeting with her coffee cup, her nails tapping anxiously against the paper sleeve. She looked up as I approached, forcing a tight-lipped smile. "Hey!" I slid into the seat across from her, leaning back casually. "Hey, sis. You look stressed." Her jaw tightened, but she didn't take the bait. Instead, she sighed and rubbed her temple. "I don't have time for games. I need your help." I stirred my coffee, pretending to consider. "Help with what?" She let out a sharp breath. "You know what. My accounts. My investments. Everything is gone." I nodded, as if I hadn't already figured that out. "And why do you think that is?" Melanie shot me a glare. "Look, I get it. You're enjoying this. Fine. But I'm in real trouble." I tilted my head. "And what do you want me to do about it?" She hesitated. That was the moment I realized she didn't have an actual plan. She had come here hoping that, despite everything, I'd feel bad enough to offer her a way out. But that wasn't going to happen. Melanie swallowed hard. "I just need a loan. Something to keep me afloat while I fix this." I let out a low chuckle. "A loan?" She nodded quickly. "Just temporary. I'll pay you back." I set my coffee down, meeting her desperate gaze. "Melanie, let me ask you something. How many times have you ever helped me when I was struggling?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. No answer. Exactly what I thought. I leaned forward slightly. You always made sure I knew my place, Mel. And now? Now you're the one who's powerless. Her eyes flashed with something, anger, humiliation, maybe even fear. But she didn't argue. I stood up, adjusting my jacket. You'll figure it out. After all, you're so much smarter than me, right? Then I walked out, leaving her sitting there, alone, for the first time in her life. I half expected Melanie to chase after me, to throw one last insult my way, something to claw back the illusion of control she had always held over me. But she didn't. She just sat there, staring at her untouched coffee, her shoulders slumped in defeat. As I stepped outside, the crisp morning air felt different, lighter, cleaner. For the first time in years, I wasn't the one walking away from a conversation feeling small. She was. I took my time heading home, wondering how long it would take before she tried again. Because she would try again. Melanie wasn't the type to accept failure, not without a fight. Sure enough, later that night, my phone buzzed again. Melanie, I know you're mad, but please, just listen. I don't have anywhere else to turn. I sighed, shaking my head. She still didn't get it. I typed back a simple response. Maybe now you understand how it feels. Then I put my phone on silent, leaned back, and enjoyed the peace. The messages didn't stop. Melanie tried everything: anger, guilt, even a pathetic attempt at playing the concerned sister card. Melanie, you're really just going to ignore me? After everything? Melanie, I don't understand why you're being so cruel. This isn't funny anymore. Melanie, Mom and Dad are worried about you. They think you're being irrational. Melanie, fine. Be petty. But when I get back on my feet, don't expect me to forget this. I smirked at that last one. Oh, so she still thought she'd bounce back? Cute. The funny thing was, Melanie had spent her whole life believing she was untouchable. That wealth, status, and control were permanent fixtures in her life. And now, reality was giving her a lesson she'd never forget. I let her messages sit there unread. No response. Then, a day later, she did exactly what I expected. She showed up at my apartment. The knock at my door was firm, controlled, but I knew it was taking every ounce of pride she had left just to be standing there. When I opened the door, there she was, dressed in her usual designer clothes, but something was off. The confidence was gone. The perfectly curated appearance was cracking. Her eyes were tired. Her makeup, usually flawless, was just a little smudged. And for the first time in my life, my sister looked small. "Can I come in?" she asked, voice quiet. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "Why?" She exhaled sharply, shaking her head. "Look, I get it. You're enjoying this. You want me to suffer a little. Fine. But I need help." I tilted my head. "And what exactly do you expect me to do?" She swallowed hard. I just need a place to stay. Just for a little while. Until I figure things out." I stared at her, waiting. There it was. The woman who had spent her whole life looking down on me. The one who never missed an opportunity to remind me of her success and my shortcomings. The one who had mocked me in front of the entire family just days ago. And now she was standing at my door, asking for shelter. The irony was delicious. I let the silence drag on, watching as she shifted uncomfortably under my gaze. Finally I spoke. "Oh, Mel," I said, shaking my head with a smirk. "Looks like you're not so rich anymore." Her face twisted, anger, shame, disbelief. "So that's it," she snapped. "You're just going to let me?" I held up a hand. "No, you let me struggle. For years. You let me feel like nothing, made sure I knew I'd never be on your level." I shrugged. Now you get to know what it's like." She opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time in her life, she had nothing to say. I took a step back. "Good luck, sis." Then I shut the door in her face. I stood there for a moment, hands still on the doorknob, listening. Nothing. No angry knock. No shouting through the door. No last-minute plea. Just silence. I almost couldn't believe it. The Melanie I knew never backed down. She always had a comeback, a way to flip the situation in her favor. But this time? Nothing. Curious, I peeked through the peephole. She was still there. Melanie stood motionless, staring at my door, as if she couldn't quite process what had just happened. Her breathing was uneven, her hands clenched at her sides. For a split second, I felt something. Not pity exactly, but a flicker of familiarity. I'd been in that position before. Powerless. Rejected. But the difference? She had chosen to make me feel that way. She exhaled shakily, then turned on her heel and walked down the hall, her designer heels clicking against the floor. I watched as she reached the stairwell, hesitated for a brief second, maybe hoping I'd change my mind, then disappeared. And just like that, she was gone. I stepped away from the door, letting out a slow breath. That should have been the end of it. But something told me this wasn't over. Not yet. I didn't hear from Melanie for the next few days. No calls. No texts. Nothing. But the family? That was another story. It started with Mom. Mom, what did you do to your sister? Mom, Melanie says you refused to help her when she needed you. Mom, you two are family. You don't turn your back on family. Then Dad joined in. Dad, you think this is funny? She's your sister, for God's sake. Step up and help her. Then a couple of our cousins. Cousin Jake, dude, I heard Mel's in trouble. That's rough. Can't you at least let her crash with you? Cousin Rachel, I get that she's been awful, but is this really necessary? It was hilarious. For years, nobody cared when Melanie looked down on me. Nobody spoke up when she mocked me at family gatherings, or treated me like an afterthought. But the moment she hit rock bottom? Suddenly I was the bad guy for not saving her. I rolled my eyes, typing out a single response to all of them. Melanie made her choices. Now she gets to live with them. Then I turned off my phone and went about my day. She wasn't my problem anymore. A week passed. The texts slowed down. The calls stopped. Eventually, the family must have realized that I wasn't budging. And Melanie? She disappeared. I heard bits and pieces through the grapevine, how she had to move out of her penthouse, sell her designer bags, cut off her luxury expenses. She wasn't homeless, but she was struggling. Living on someone's couch. Probably working a job for the first time in her life. I wondered if she still thought I was the loser now. Thanksgiving came around, and for the first time, I actually enjoyed the family gathering. Melanie wasn't there. No smug remarks, no backhanded comments. Just peace. At one point, Mom sighed, shaking her head. I just wish you two could work things out. I just smiled. We did. Because for the first time ever, Melanie had finally learned what it felt like to be powerless. And I had finally learned that I didn't owe her anything.